How's it sound? I'll talk to you about the.
One, two. Mic check, one, two. Okay, so now let's talk about how quality is. What's the quality? You hear like the one, two. Mic check is the mic. Haley is seeing how this sounds on the screen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. 1, 2, 1, 2. How's the sound? Haley. How's we going? How we doing? All right, let me just see what I can. Trying to get our. This will be the body plate screen. Anything else? Is it clear? Is it loud enough? Haley, is it loud enough? Is it loud enough? Can you hear me clearly? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going over this way. How's it going? 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. 4, 5, 6 is clear and loud enough, like without it being blasted. Is there any of that like stuff we had with Michael where it's like, okay, I lowered the gain, so let's see how it goes when we start. 1, 2, 1, 2. With this one, so it's like you got to be a little more up to the pace. Good. Yeah, we do like kind of everything. No, we were talking about that. Yeah. I get a longer reach in mine too. I mean, no matter what, keep not big enough. It might just be I'm gonna get a bigger something, but for right now. Yeah. We'll get a little bigger. Less than that. That's like an epic.
You still hear the cracking? Yeah. Still cracking? Still cracking? Let me, but if you go down, look right in. Yes. Okay. So. I can plug you into the power. That's around here. I might try to take out for a second.
Looking for a flying saucer. We're gonna, I don't know what happened in there.
How is it right now? Good. Crackling background, or you're crackling from the background? Or?
I don't think it's gonna
I can keep reducing the gain. Let me try a different setting. Let's try this setting. I just try a different setting. This is for like my setting. So I'm gonna keep talking with the mic too. Quick.
1, 2. So, crackling, background noise, work from the mic. And the volume levels. 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing our mic. Hello, everyone. Getting started at 5. We're just testing out our sound on the screen right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's back to the previous setting, Haley. 1, 2, 3. Four, 5, 6. How's it going? Or crackling, less cracking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Getting started at 5 o'clock. If you have food and you finish it, you can please throw it out. That'd be great.
Block everyone from you because I'm so tall. Yeah. Sorry,
Let's figure it out.
they must have taken it. Like, obviously, yeah. Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Oh, and thank you. Yeah, this is the second time. It's really, it's just super interesting. And I'm sure has applications like job interviews and other things on sports. Like, I'm sure. Totally. Like, I need it more. Yeah. Good.
All right, I have some sad news for the kids. We have a bunch of activities. Dr. Chung, who I'm going to introduce in a second. Some of the activities today involve both parent and child doing an activity together. So if you're here with a child, you guys should sit together. All right? Sorry to our children. All right, so if we can switch before we get started. If you don't have a child or you don't have a parent, that's okay too. But if you're here with a parent, with a child parent, sit with them.
I'll be the nervous parent. I'm really good at that. I'll just I'm really good at that. No, I'm totally.
Are you going shifting around?
It's very funny.
Okay, this each goes to a pair, and let's know if you yeah, you want to you're a pair, I know you're a pair. Oh, wait. Oh, both, sorry. Oh, all three. I'm not asking you
They're at camp. The kids are. Okay.
Welcome if you guys are coming in. Finding the seats, grab some chairs.
Thank you. It's a job. Little different. Sophistication.
We're just going to print out a few more packets as well.
Yeah, maybe we can get to I don't know.
We're just going to print out a few more copies.
Just another level. I bet you they really hang out. No, I haven't seen it. That, yeah. Oh, that's nice.
We're just printing out a few packets for folks.
For her to be able to spend time.
Hello? You guys don't need to fill out the packets yet. We'll actually be doing it during the presentation as a workshop. So just hold on to the packets for now.
All right, so just wait on the packets, guys. We're just printing out a few more for folks.
My head's like,
Where are you going?
he said it.
I think it can help.
We're printing out a few more copies. So for those of you who do not have, actually, if you don't have 3, raise your hand. Can you raise your hand? I think we need about 6.
All right, we got it printing.
Hello? I'm just going to start then while...
All right, let me introduce you and these guys will get stuff. All right, so guys, welcome. Raise your hand if you were here for the Columbia College Talk. All right, clap for everybody who did double week with us. So welcome everybody, welcome back. And welcome to folks today. So it's really great to have you guys here. I know for the campers that did the session today, you guys worked really hard. So hopefully I know you guys will be a little bit tired, but you guys can get a lot out of this session. It's one of the biggest requests we get is for sports psychology, how do I help my child sort of maneuver through the anxiety, the setbacks, and to perform at their best. I think we all know like our goal, I mean, for us is to make sure how do we get our students to perform even just at their level. We see sometimes we know what our child can do and we see them not always getting there. And, you know, we know it's more than just a physical part, it's how they're thinking about things. And I can tell you just my own personal experience as an Olympian, the longer I went, the longer I fenced, the more I realized how important the mental side was of the sport. And honestly, my biggest breakthrough is once I had the physical part down was just how I thought about things, how I managed the stress, how I managed the pressure, how I dealt with the setbacks, how I dealt with how much time I was putting in, and the pressure. I'm like putting all this time, like, will I do this or not? So I'm so excited to have met Dr. Chung, who's going to be talking to you guys in a second. Her son fences at our Eastside Club. I actually used to fence against her husband when he was at Boston College. So it was sort of fortuitous. They were in the Eastside Club and we started chatting. And I've already personally had a few sessions with her. It's been fantastic. For me, just as a club owner and a coach, thinking about our students, trying to understand how we can do better even in our classes and our conversations with kids. So this is by no means sort of like a one-off. This is sort of an introduction today. But the work she's going to be doing with us will be with myself, with our coaches. We'll be doing hopefully some additional webinars. And also if you do want to do individual work, she'll talk to you about how we can do that. But I think our goal, for all of us as parents, a parent as well, is obviously get our kids to feel good about what they're doing, to be at their best when they go out there. How do they handle the ups and downs? Because there's always going to be ups and downs, and understanding that journey and just getting stronger for it. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dr. Michelle Chung. Welcome. And please welcome her to the panel.
Thank you. Great. So today we're going to really do this. I'm going to lecture a little bit and we'll do some teaching, but I really wanted this to be a workshop type of format. So I want a lot of engagement and interaction, within everyone here in the audience, but also I'll be having you do some exercises, which is what a lot of these worksheets are that you'll see in front of you. And hopefully for the people who don't have copies, we'll be getting them shortly to you. Okay, great. So I am a clinical psychologist. I specialize in anxiety, performance, and sports psychology. I've worked with the NFL for many, many years. Also have worked with Olympic athletes and a lot of students who have been recruited to First Division athletic schools. And so a lot of what I am bringing to you here today is based on all of that experience put together. Okay, so mind over match. You've mastered your body's agility. Now it's time to fortify your mind. So research has actually shown that mental preparation accounts for 50 to 90% of an athlete's success, especially in high stakes competitions. If you think about that, that is 50% to 90% is really based on your mindset and your ability to manage your stress, your anxiety, and really control that emotional response in that moment. But I don't have to convince you. I'm going to let them convince you. So Tom Brady has said, mental toughness is what separates good players from great players. Michael Phelps, most decorated Olympian, credits 90% of his success to mental preparation and only 10% to physical training. If you want to be the best, you have to do things that other people aren't willing to do. And that's where I started learning how much your mind really affects your performance. And so this is really important to realize and to think about, is that this is truly what sets people apart, right? They've done a lot of research on national level versus world level fencers. And they've looked and tore it all apart. What makes that difference between the people who make that world level and the people who make the national level? And it came down to two things. The first was commitment, level of commitment, right? The dedication, the motivation that they put in. The second piece is emotional control. And this is very specific to fencing itself. It is the ability to manage and to control those emotions, the anxiety, the stress that you might feel in those moments, because those bouts happen so quickly and you have to reset so quickly in order to get back into the game. And so it is really about emotional management and emotional control when it comes to fencing. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about motivation here. Connection to joy increases motivation. I want to ask everyone here, whether it's the athletes or whether even the parents, what do you love about fencing? Or what do you love about your kid fencing? Anyone throw anything out there? Great.
I love about fencing, about the footwork and
That is really excellent. The footwork. That is, and I want you to jot that down on that piece of paper. If you see there's for all of you that have the sheets of paper, there is one that says, it says joy, your joy in fencing. I want you all to think about what is it that brings you joy? And if you're a parent out there, what is it that brings you joy about watching your child fence? Or supporting your child in that fencing? And right next, these three things here are just examples, right? Some people will say, I love watching the resilience, or I love feeling the resilience and the growth. Some parents have said it helps them grow independence, right? Being able to take care of all their gear, being able to pack all of their stuff, being able to manage their tournaments. You know, independence is a huge factor, right? As we're raising our children. And the joy of learning is celebrating the small victories, those small things. Anyone else want to share with us here? What are some of the joys in fencing? Great.
So, what I really enjoy is when I see her, whether she wins or loses, just really tries her best.
Amazing. That is a great parenting answer. I really love that, because what parent doesn't love seeing their child feel good about what they did, right? And enjoying themselves in that moment. And, you know, this is the reason I'm starting out with joy here and motivation, is because this is the motivating factor. You know, if you think about, there's something called intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation means things like, if you win, you get prize money, right? That's something external that you're gaining. Intrinsic motivation means it's coming from within. This is something that is driving you to excel or to keep going or to do this, that is feeling good just to you. And in the end, intrinsic motivation is the number one important thing when it comes to excelling and enduring in a sport. Because if you don't have that joy and that intrinsic motivation, it equals burnout. And burnout can happen pretty quickly for a lot of people. Okay, anyone else?
Great. Good time to spend. Time spent with our children.
That is a great one too. Absolutely, right? A lot of time you spend with your children, coming to practices, taking them to tournaments, you know, even being able to speak about, like, okay, how did things go? What did that feel like? Absolutely, that's a great one. Okay, I want everyone here to jot down maybe one or two joys that they feel when they're fencing on those pieces of paper. And this is important. We're going to come back to this again later. Did everyone get one or two things down? Great. Okay. Let's talk about confidence, building confidence. Now, this is something that is obviously very crucial, right? And for those parents out there, you will be a huge part in this for your child, building confidence in your child. And for the athletes out there, this is about being the best. And it's not about being the best. It's about being better than you were yesterday, right? And that is incredibly important because that is the building block of improvement and growth. Without this type of thinking, you won't be able to get anywhere. Because if anything, it feels really overwhelming. And if people come to me and they say, I want to get a full ride scholarship to an Ivy League school. Well, that's a big mountain to climb. There's a lot of steps you need to do to get there. If you just think about, I just need to be better than I was yesterday, that is how you climb that mountain step by step. And for parents and athletes, focus on efforts and learning, not only on outcomes. Now, outcomes obviously matter. Winning matters. But that being said, if you focus only on the outcome, the end result, you are missing out on the whole entire journey to get there, right? But on top of that, the reality is not everyone is going to be number one all the time, right? How do you hold on to that motivation and that ability to keep trying, to be resilient, to reset as soon as that you lost that point, right? And that is all about focusing on efforts and learning, right? Because if you're able to say to yourself, or if you're able to say to your child, okay, that didn't go the way that we wanted. What did we learn about? What did we learn about ourselves? Or what did we learn from this? How can we use this, instead of letting that defeat actually take over you, how can we use that and take control back from that disappointment, from that frustration, from that, that feeling of losing or whatever it might be. And that is by saying, okay, we're going to learn from this. What are we going to take away from this? How do we overcome this? And that is such an important point and such an important piece that we all need to be able to do for ourselves. Okay. So here's the thing. When you think about being better than you were yesterday, you have to think about setting goals. And I really do believe that setting goals in itself is an art form. Because if you don't set the right goals, then you're never going to feel success, right? You're never going to feel good about what you're doing. And so there is an acronym that some of you may have seen already called SMART goals. How many of you have seen this before? Okay, great, a good amount of you. So setting SMART goals isn't just about achieving more, it's about achieving what truly matters with clarity, purpose, and focus. So SMART goals could look something like this. It has to be very specific. It can't be like, I want to win a bout. That's not enough. It has to be very specific. You can say, I want to, win the next touch. And it has to be measurable. Okay, how do you measure that? It's pretty obvious, right? You'll know by when you win that touch or not. Is it attainable? You want to make sure you're setting yourself up for success, right? Is this a person that is so incredibly at a different level that maybe that can never happen? Or is this something that you actually can do? Is this something that you can succeed at? it has to be realistic, and then time bound. So time bound really means that you don't, I mean, it could be longer term goals in the sense of you can say in a year, I wanna achieve this, or I wanna be able to accomplish this. But it also could be in the next 3 minutes, I wanna be able to do 5 sit-ups. But there needs to be some sort of time bound to it, otherwise it could feel endless, and again, not successful. So this is really a roadmap for you to be able to feel successful when you're setting the right type of goals. Now there's, I think in one of the packets, the same one that says joy, I wanted us, there's a breakdown of the SMART goals. So I wanted us all to think about what is a SMART goal that we could use in fencing the next time you come, the next time you're practicing. Make it specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So take a few minutes just to think of what that might be. Yes. Yeah. So think about, is there a certain specific way that you want to improve? Is there something about the way you lunge or the way you attack or maybe a parry? Tim, do we have any more extra forms?
Natalie, we've round a couple more. And Isaac and Danny, guys, come up here. Bring your seats up here. Isaac, Danny, come here. Bring a seat. Bring a seat with you.
Okay, I just got a really great question, and I just want to share it with everyone because I'm sure there are other people in this room that are also thinking the same thing, which is, sometimes when we are in a slump, we're having a bad week. It happens to all of us, right? A bad day. It seems like goal setting or whatever it is, no matter what you're trying to do, it doesn't seem to be working for you in your favor. And so what that would mean to me is, this is going back to this slide. Let's focus on efforts and learning, right? So maybe your SMART goal might be about an effort. Maybe it's about saying, I'm going to practice this touch 10 times. I'm going to practice this parry 30 times. Whatever it might be. Really go back to efforts, learning. Any more questions about SMART goals? Okay, has everyone had a chance to write some SMART goals for themselves? Yes, question.
There's a question here about what the difference is between attainable and realistic.
Okay, attainable and realistic. So what is the difference between attainable and realistic? Okay, so there is a little overlap. Absolutely, that is absolutely true. So for example, okay, I use this example a lot about me. I'm 5'2", right? I'm not gonna be in the WNBA. It's just not happening. It's not realistic, right? But when it comes to attainable, okay, you can look at something that's more like, say my goal is to perfect a layup, right? I'm just using the basketball analogy. Measurable, I might do something like, okay, I'm going to practice it 10 times today, right? So attainable is, okay, I'm going to try and you know, over the next like 3 days, I'm gonna have a partner come with me and we're gonna practice this together, right? And then realistic is make sure that it actually makes sense, right? Like I could probably get good at a layout. I will never be part of the WNBA. So, you know, attainability is really about like making it happen. Like, can this actually, you know, can you set up the environment or whatever it might be to make it happen? Is it realistic? I'm never gonna join the WNBA. Does that make sense to clarify? Yeah. Okay. So these SMART goals are something that I want you to go back to, and you could do this almost every day after every practice. You know, you could go back to your SMART goals and you could think to yourself, okay, what do I want to learn or improve upon the next time I'm back in the club? Okay, the Journal of Applied Sports Psychology has found that athletes who visualize their performance improve their accuracy and reduced anxiety by up to 30%, right? So this is a very research-backed statistic, and this really points to two main tools here, mindfulness and visualization. Has anyone here heard of mindfulness? Show of hands. Okay. Do any of you use it in your daily practice? Wonderful. I love that. Oh, great. So, okay, here is something that I do want to teach here as a tool. Now, there is a form of mindfulness, which is called meditation, right? You could sit down for 20 minutes and do any of these mindfulness exercises. I will be perfectly honest with you, I am very bad at that. That is really hard for me to do. And I commend anybody here that's able to do it in that way. I tend to use mindfulness as a tool in my everyday functioning. So mindfulness, really by definition, is the ability to stay completely grounded and present, focused only on one thing in that moment, right? And I use it in the sense where, for example, I remember whenever I would be walking into a situation where I was feeling nervous, say a job interview, right? Or, meeting somebody really important for the very first time. What I will do is I will focus on something that is really concrete in front of me. So you all have pens in front of you, right? I want to teach a very quick mindfulness exercise. So if you grab that pen or pencil, I want you to put it in your hand. Now this is something tangible, concrete, you can feel, you can see, and I want you to look at it and in your mind, say, what colors do you see? How does it feel if you touch it? Is it smooth? Are there different textures involved? Is there something that you're noticing for the first time? If you shake that pen or pencil near your ear, does it make a sound? Some will, maybe some won't. But just notice that. And that is a quick mindfulness that you can do almost anywhere, right? And you can use it as a tool for the pencil in front of your hands, it could be your shirt. You could grab your shirt and you could say, I'm just gonna use your shirt. But, I see blue, a little bit of like white heather, a slightly darker blue. You could feel it and you can say, oh, it's maybe a little rough or it's smooth or whatever it might be. Even using any sense of any of your sense of smell, right? Maybe there's a laundry smell to your shirt or whatever it might be. Just describe that and be focused on just that one thing. And you know what that does? That takes away all of the other clutter that might be going on in your mind, right? You're not thinking about what you're gonna have for dinner tonight. You're not thinking about, oh, why did I just lose that bout? You're not thinking about, oh, I messed up and I did that thing wrong. You are just thinking about that pencil, or you're thinking about that shirt. And it's something benign. It's not gonna make you more upset. It's not gonna make you happy. It's just gonna bring you right back down to baseline. Now, the thing about mindfulness that I want you to remember is that it also has to be done in a non-judgmental way. Because judgments, when they creep into our mind, what do? Anyone have to take a guess?
They distract me.
Totally, yes. They distract you, they completely distract you. And you know what else they do? They actually bring up emotions, right? If you think to yourself, oh my goodness, like, this chess piece is so ugly, right? There's an emotion that comes with that. Whereas if you look at it and you say this chess piece is like a brownish bronze color, there's some highlighting there with some of the light, it has a mouth and it's the profile of a horse. That's just fact. There's no judgment there, right? So I just want you to try it now with this. I feel like the Cybertruck, very polarizing car, right? People either love it, they hate it, they can't help but look at it. When you look at this, what are some judgments that come to mind? Anybody, if you'd be willing to share? Yes.
Very expensive.
Yes. What other judgments? Uh-huh. Yes, absolutely. Other judgments. Mhm. I can't hear you. It's impractical. There we go. That's a judgment too. Now, let's try and look at this Cybertruck in a non-judgmental way, which means you're just going to describe what you see. Can anyone give this a try? Mhm.
It's gray and black.
Gray and black. Perfect. You're noticing colors.
It looks like a triangle.
It looks like a triangle. Absolutely. Uh-huh.
It's very straight.
It's very straight. It's got very harsh angles, right? Anyone else? Mhm.
It's reflective.
It's reflective. Absolutely.
It's next to like a creek.
It's next to a creek. Yup. Mm-hmm. Yes.
It has a shadow.
It has a shadow. Oh, you guys are good at non-judgmental thinking. Okay, so this is the perfect example of the power of judgments versus non-judgments, right? I will be honest with you, I look at a Cybertruck and I think, that's pretty ugly to me. It kind of looks like it comes from the future, I don't know, but for me, it's not my style, right? But if I were to just look at it and think, okay, it's got really sharp angles, it's reflective, it's gray and black, these are just facts. I'm just listing facts. And mindfulness needs to be done in the exact same way. Because if you are thinking to yourself, say you mess up in the middle of a practice or maybe in the middle of a bout, and then you're trying to be mindful and you're thinking to yourself, okay, I'm standing on this strip, it's silver, I see some reflections, there's some texture to it. and I'm trying to grab myself, but then all of a sudden a judgment comes in of what's wrong with me? Like, why am I so bad at that? Like, why do I keep doing that? That is going to not only distract me, but that's also going to push me down, right? That is not going to encourage me or to help me build resilience and get back in the game. So mindfulness in the most non-judgmental way is incredibly, incredibly important. I'm gonna go back to visualization here. Visualization is something that is incredibly important because research has shown that our brains does an incredibly bad job at trying to decipher what is real life and what's happening in our imagination. Because, and this is, how many of you have watched people play video games on YouTube? Let's be honest here. Let's be honest. Okay. The reason that we love watching other people playing video games is because our brain is releasing all the same chemicals that it does as if we were actually the ones playing the video games. So all of the endorphins, the happy hormones, the dopamine hits, we are getting that ding, 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 ding in our brain the whole entire time, even though we're not actually doing the act. Now, that's the bad thing about it, right? These watching people do video games, things like that. But why not use our brain's inability to really decipher what is real life versus imagination? Use it for us. And that's where visualization comes in. So one of the things that they had done and looked at a bunch of athletes and followed, they stuck all these, EKG machines to their brain, and they were watching. If you're visualizing whatever it is that you're doing, how does that differ from when you're actually on the strip and doing the work? And what they found is that it doesn't differ a lot. And so visualization is incredibly important because it gives you, one, the opportunity to practice even when you're not in the club. You could be standing in line at Starbucks. You could be driving somewhere, and as long as you're thinking and visualizing what you're doing on the strip, it's almost the same as actually practicing. Because there is a muscle memory or a brain memory that occurs. And that occurs over time with repetition. Okay? The other thing is, Michael Phelps is a huge proponent of visualization. How many of you guys ever heard about his story? Have you heard it? Yes. So this is a great story. So Michael Phelps he and his coach used to do visualization all the time. He would be visualizing exactly what his strokes would look like, what the pool would look like, how it smelled, the starting blocks under his feet, and then he would keep repeating in his mind, this is exactly what the breaststroke is going to be like. This is exactly what the freestyle is going to be like. Kept doing it so many times that he got bored of it, right? And so instead, what he decided to do was, I'm going to start visualizing what happens if I mess up, right? What if I do a false start? What if I, jump in and my goggles flip over? And he started to visualize all these ways that things could go wrong and how would he bounce back in that moment. And lo and behold, what happened was at the final, I think it was the relay, right? He basically dove into the pool and then his goggles flipped up. He was basically blind, couldn't see underwater. But because of the visualization, he knew exactly what to do. The way he had problem solved it and visualized it in his mind was that he knew it took him a certain number of strokes to get to the end of the pool. And then he knew once he gets there, you do the flip. And then there's a certain number of strokes that it takes him to get to the other end of the pool. And so he was not tripped up when that thing didn't go his way. Instead, he was able to just bounce back and get right back in it, and he won that last gold medal. So that really, truly is the power of visualization and what it can really do for you. And we're gonna go into that a little bit more a little later. Okay. I heard that when, for those of you who were here with Coach Michael, he talked a bit about the flow state. Is that right? Right? Okay. So how many of you know what a flow state is? Okay, a few of you. Great. So a flow state is really all of these things. But really, if you were to summarize it, it is that moment when you are so in sync, body and mind, that you just kind of go into this flow, this way of just moving and reacting and being that almost feels effortless. I mean, obviously you're putting effort into and exerting energy, but it feels effortless in the sense where you're not really thinking about exactly every single step that you're doing, but instead you're just doing exactly what your body and your mind has been trained to do. Now, I'm sure all of you have experienced this in different ways, right? Sometimes it could be, for those of you who are students, if you're writing a paper, and sometimes there's just like a point where you're just in the flow, right? It's just coming out, it's much quicker, you're being productive, you're not procrastinating, you're in a flow state. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this also when you're in a flow state when you're fencing. Now, can anyone share with us what that flow state when you're fencing might feel like? Or has anyone experienced that? Great. You've experienced it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Can I ask you one question? And you can feel free to pass if you don't want to answer. Is there a clue to tell you, like, how do you know you're in a flow state?
You're not really thinking about what you're doing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's it. Just
Not really thinking about what you're doing.
You just do stuff without thinking about it.
Yes. That is exactly a flow state. Anyone else? Ooh, great.
For me, I don't know, sometimes, for me, it's time slows down for me. If I'm gonna do a prayer post or something, it slows down. I kind of just focus all the way.
That is a really common experience that a lot of people have when they're in a flow state. It feels as if time slows down. Wouldn't that be amazing during a bout if time slowed down and you had just a little bit more time to reset and to think about what you're going to do? Anyone else? Ooh, you guys are in for a treat because we're going to talk about how to get into the flow states and how to do that in a way that actually helps. So, okay, flow states is really a very present state of mindfulness where you're flowing, right? You're doing the thing that you have trained to do all of these years. And so when you are in a flow state, we all have clues, almost body clues, that we know that we're in that state or not. Some people say time will slow down. Some people will say it feels effortless. Some people will say I feel like a tingle in my, my feet or my hands. Some people have described it as almost like your focus. When it's normally you're looking at the whole room, all of a sudden it's just and you're just targeting one thing, and you don't notice the sounds or the space around you. The flow state is a very elusive thing to find unless you know how to find it. Okay? And we're going to talk a lot about how we're going to find our flow states. Okay, flow states really come, there's a few ways that we can sort of trick our brains to getting into a flow state, okay? One of the main ways that we trick our brains is repetition. This is something that is so incredibly important, especially as you're coming up with a pre-bout routine, right? So like as you're getting ready to go into that tournament or as you're getting ready to fence, I really, really urge all of you to come up with a routine that you're going to follow exactly from the beginning every single time. Because it's quite like, I don't know if any of you have taken Psychology 101 classes, but does anyone here remember Pavlov's dogs? Yes. Okay. So there is a thing called classical conditioning, and that is what you're doing with your body and your mind by doing this same routine every single time. You are classically conditioning your mind and your body to know we're about to get into a flow state. And so if you remember Pavlov's dogs, what he basically did was he trained his dogs so that whenever he rang a bell, the dog would salivate, right? And initially what he did was he repeated the same thing over and over and over again. He basically showed food, the dog would salivate, right? Then he started to do ring a bell, show food, dog would salivate. Repeat, 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 and eventually he took away the food, just rang the bell, and the dog's brain was classically conditioned to then salivate, right? So we need to get our mind and our body to classically condition ourselves to get into that flow state. And the way you do that is by that pre-bout routine. Now, does anyone here have a pre-bout routine already? No? Okay. I'm just going to throw out some examples of what some of my other athletes do. Some of them?
This child here says so.
Oh yeah? Wonderful. Can you share just like parts of it?
There are a few stretches I like to do, especially at big tournaments before some of my DEs. So I have an order, I take 10 seconds, get a few of them done, and I think that gets me in the right headspace to defense.
Amazing. Absolutely. That is an absolute pre-bout routine. Anything else? Okay, some other examples. Oh, wonderful, yes.
People are being shy, but not really.
For me, I run for exactly 10 minutes. And then I'll listen to the same playlist over and over, just like playing like the same hype songs. And then I'll try and like bout for like at least 20. That's like my goal. But like yeah, usually everything has time to it, which is why I do it.
Oh, the other thing I was gonna add is breathing. Obviously, breathing is also a good thing to add into your pre-routine. And also the visualization that we were talking about is another option.
You're not.
While the athletes are doing that, I'm gonna just speak to the parents for a second. So how can parents support getting your child into the flow? And this is something that is really, really important because especially if you have younger athletes as parents, you are a huge part of what is going to be this, your child's pre-routine. Now, there's three main things that are incredibly important for parents to understand. One is to encourage, don't pressure, okay? Because pressure, unfortunately, people sometimes break under pressure. But if you encourage, that's a totally different ballgame, right? If you encourage, you are actually lifting them up and saying, hey, you can do this, right? So I always say, instead of asking, why didn't you win? Or like, what happened at that bout? Why didn't you get that point? Instead, you can ask a question like, what did you learn today? Right? That's an encouraging statement versus something that is a little bit more critical and negative. You want to focus on efforts and attitude, not just the results. So you can speak about results, like I said, it's important, but don't forget about the effort and the focus and the attitude that also went into that. And there's a magic ratio in relationships, and this is really incredibly important to understand and to know. This is actually done by a bunch of researchers. Their name are Gottman and Gottman, husband and wife pair. They look at criticism, positive versus praise. So criticism versus praise. And what they found is that for every one negative thing you hear, it equals 5 positive things. And that is because, unfortunately, our brains, we are developed to be survival machines, right? Our brains are not wired to make us happy or to experience joy. Our brains are really wired to help us survive. And because of that, there is something called a negativity bias. Our brains have a tendency to just be attracted to more of the negative things in our environment. And that's because sometimes we have to find those negative things in order to stay safe, right? A car is coming right at you, you better pay attention to that instead of the cute dog on the corner, right? I mean, there's just a way in which our brains are wired that way. And what they're finding is that 5-to-1 ratio, if you think about that, that is a lot of praise that you have to give to one criticism. But that just makes it equal. That's not even, having somebody feel good about themselves. That's just to balance the plane. So really thinking about that, as parents, we need to encourage and we need to praise a lot more than you probably ever realize. Helping with recovery. So obviously supporting good sleep, hydration, making sure our athletes, young athletes have some breaks and some downtime. And reminding your child, hey, that again, going back to the joy, the motivation, right? What is it that you like about this, right? And making sure it's not about you, it's like finding that intrinsic motivation in the student athletes. And so again, making sure to also focus on things that went well. And then really watching out for overcoaching or criticizing, especially immediately after a match or a bout. I tend to find, and I see this happen all the time, right? Your kid finishes and like the parent is right up in their face, like giving, or sometimes screaming on the sideline, that is actually incredibly unhelpful for the athlete. And so something we're going to do later is we're going to come up with a post-bout feedback plan. And this is something that, as a child and the kid, you will sort of do together. And I'm asking the parent to really stick to that post-bout feedback plan. The other thing is start by asking your child how they felt about the tournament. Don't interject your own thoughts or opinions first. You want them to be, because really, if you think about learning, it's a completely different experience when you experience that situation on your own and you go through it than when somebody tells you, oh, don't touch that pot, it's hot, versus if you touch that pot and you feel that it is hot, like you are not going to forget that, right? And so you really want to start by asking your child first, what was that like for you? How did you feel about that? Don't interject like, oh, you should have done this, or like, or even positive stuff. I really like the way that you did that. Start with them being able to interject their own opinions and their own thoughts first. And then reminding them about the pre-bout routine, right? The thing that everyone just spent a few minutes doing. Remind them, hey, let's do it, because repetition is going to be key when it comes to that pre-bout routine. Okay. We're going to talk a little, actually, as a parent, I just want all the parents in this room to think about, out of all of these points that are listed here, what is the one thing you are going to try and implement or change starting this week? And I want everyone to really think about that, hone in on it, even jot it down, because I want you to be accountable to that. Okay. All right. So let's talk about managing anxiety, managing stress, and managing all of those emotions that you're having when you're on the strip. These are research-backed ways that you can learn to control and manage, I hate that word control, manage your emotions and your body, okay? There is a mind-body connection, which means whatever it is that your brain is feeling, it will actually, send, if your brain thinks, oh, this is bad, it's gonna send all of the hormones out there to make your body feel bad. If your body is out there and feeling good and standing tall, it will send messages to your brain saying, hey, we're doing good here. And then the brain will then release all of those good hormones and chemicals into your body. So the ultimate trick here is to control your breath, and you'll control your mind. Now, this is very important, because the way you look at it is the heart is the engine of your body, and your breath is the pedal. You're either going to speed it up or you're going to slow it down just by your breath. And if you think about slowing down your heart, what it actually does then is it slows down all the blood that's rushing through your system. It slows down your mind. It slows down your thoughts. And it actually gets you to a place where you're feeling more in control, right? More calm. So there's different types of deep breathing. And how many of you have heard about box breathing? 4-4-4s? Okay, great. So this is a common one that a lot of people like. I'll be honest, not my favorite, but a lot of people like it. It's where you basically breathe in for 4, hold for 4, and then release for 4, hold for 4. For me, this has never felt good. I like a type of breathing where you basically breathe in for 4, and then you breathe out for 2 longer counts. So breathe in for 4 and out with 6, okay? I want everyone in this room to just try it right now, right? So if you're gonna do the box breathing, 4, 4, 4, hold for 4, in for 4, out for 4. Or you breathe in 4 and then out 6. And again, if you slow down your breathing, you're gonna slow down your heart, and then you're gonna slow down your brain. Relationship to stress. This is really, really incredibly important. How many of you have heard that, okay, let's put it this way. How many of you don't like the feeling of stress and anxiety? I'm gonna put myself in there too. I don't really like that feeling. The tricky thing about it is that it actually is necessary in order for us to perform at a peak level. We need a certain amount of stress and a certain amount of anxiety in order to get ourselves to care enough, really, to perform better. And so there is this bell curve. Have you guys seen this before? Where it's the level of pressure versus performance, right? The ideal performance happens here at the very, very top. We need a certain level of pressure though, in order to get to that place. And this is extremely important. There's 2 different types of stress that they talk about, that a lot of researchers talk about. There's distress, that's the one that feels yucky, and you're all overwhelmed and you don't know what to do. And then there's eustress. And this is what makes you feel motivated, determined, and excited. It actually improves performance, okay? So, going back here, your relationship to stress is something I want you to all think about, okay? Sometimes, I want you to actually, I think it's on there's a worksheet, or a part of the worksheet talks about some of the stress. What is it that shows you in your body that you are feeling stressed or anxious? For a lot of people, sometimes it's stomach, sometimes it's sweaty palms, some people get racing thoughts, some people get heart, like the heart is beating really, really fast. Can anyone share, like what are some ways that they know in their body or their mind that they are feeling stress? Anyone? Great. What? Yes, stressy. Absolutely. Your stomach starts to say like, hey, I want something. Stomach starts to say, I want something in there. But your mouth is also saying like, I want to feed myself, right? What else? Heart rate. Heart rate is a big one. It starts usually going faster, right? Anyone else? Yes.
Losing a little focus visually.
Absolutely, that's a big one, actually. The fact that in a way, some people even describe it as like almost like fuzziness. It becomes like a little.
Whiting out.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Fatigue, absolutely. And the fatigue is happening because your body is moving so quickly, right? All that blood is pumping, the heart is pumping. I want you to think about all of those signs that we just spoke about and tell yourself, this is just my body getting ready to do well. This is not something bad. This is not something that I need to avoid. This is a sign that my body is getting ready to fight. My body is getting ready to do this. And I want you to write down on a piece of paper, on the paper, what is your new relationship to stress? What is that stress going to be telling you? Okay, visualization and imagery, we went through that a little bit before, so that is obviously a really important thing. I always tell my athletes, start by visualizing ideal situations. Don't go to the Michael Phelps, like, let's do what am I gonna do when I mess up? Start with the positive ideal visualizations first until that is really grounded in you, then you start to move on to the other pieces. Now, cold temperature and ice. This is something that was actually taken from the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs, when they do deep diving, deep sea diving, it's really cold, right? The depths of the ocean. And they have the scuba gear on, so they have to control their breathing. And what they have found is that mammals, which we all are, have a reflex called the mammalian dive response. Has anyone heard of this before? You have? Oh my God, that's not a lot of people know about this. Okay, the mammalian dive response is something that is it's kind of cool, to be honest. But what it does is that your body has a reflex, which means it can't control it, to shut certain parts of your body down, including slowing down your heart rate, slowing down your breathing, and slowing down your thoughts when there is cold temperature and controlled breathing. So one of the things that I actually tell people to do, and some of my athletes do go in with like a cup of ice or something like that, and they'll put ice on certain very sensitive areas of your body, behind your neck, your temples, sometimes just in the palm of your hands, and they will use that with slowed breathing to actually regulate and to control your emotional experience. And if I'm sure not a lot of you guys have experienced this, but if you have, panic attacks are shut down using this particular technique. If you are ever experiencing a panic attack, you run to the bathroom, you get cold water, you cup your hand like this. And then you basically cover your mouth and your nose and you hold your breath and it will control that panic attack right away. But that is the power of cold. Progressive muscle relaxation. This is something that I actually really like. Sometimes I teach it. So there's two ways you can teach this. One is where you just do certain regions of your body, right? Tense your toes, release the tension. Tense your calves and your legs, release the tension. And you just keep moving up your body in that way, or down your body in that way. But sometimes when you're in the middle of a bout, or maybe between, you don't have that time to really do things like that. Sometimes all you have to do is just squeeze your fists as hard as possible, like almost to the point where even when you shake, because you're squeezing so hard, and then just boom, release it. Because what that does is that takes the energy that is anxiety or stress, and it releases it in a physical way. So you're just like basically getting rid of all of that stress and tension through your body. Proprioceptive input. Now this is something that is brought in from a lot of the occupational therapy, school of thought, and physical therapy. Proprioceptive input is really the act of condensing your joints and releasing it. And so when you do things like jump up and down, do you ever see like athletes do that sometimes, right? They'll kind of like jump up and down before they go in. A lot of times that is proprioceptive input. What it does is when you compress your joints and you release it, it also releases that anxiety and stress energy out of your body. Self-talk. Self-talk is incredibly important because we all have self-talk. And for parents, it's important for you to know that oftentimes what you say to your children the most becomes their inner self-talk, right? So really think about what you're saying to them and how often you might be saying that thing. Because that will eventually become that inner voice that all of your children will carry with them, forever, possibly. And it's harder to change. Self-talk is important also because, remember what I was saying about the magic ratio, the 5-to-1 ratio? If you're constantly putting yourself down or criticizing yourself, or especially like almost like name calling, like, why do I suck at this? Like, why am I so bad? Those things are, again, not going to encourage you. They're not going to lift you up. Now, the funny thing is, I have a lot of perfectionists that I deal with in my practice. And I'm sure a lot of us might have some of those traits in this room. Perfectionists will come to me and say, but if I don't put myself down or criticize myself, how am I going to motivate myself to get better? And that is one of the biggest misconceptions that people have. There is this misconception that you have to be almost mean to yourself, that you have to like put yourself down in order to get yourself to do better. But if you think about it, being mean to yourself, that's a judgment. Remember how we were talking about before, those judgments that don't help, right? They make you just more emotional. Progress happens because it's just a cause and effect. It's not about a judgment per se. It's not because you're saying or somebody's telling you that you're bad and you should be doing better. It's very easy. Okay, I missed that point. There was a cause, and then there's an effect. I can go back in and I'm going to practice that 30 more times for the next week. And then you know what? The outcome is I'll get better. So really letting go of that critical inner voice is something that is extremely important. The last is biofeedback machines. And I was telling Tim, I was trying to bring one in today, but unfortunately my associates in my practice were using it tonight, so they couldn't. But these biofeedback machines are quite amazing. And even like 5 years ago, they were pretty inaccessible. You had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars and get these like big machines that you would have to put, hooked up to a computer with all these devices on your body. But now they have all these really accessible machines that you can do at home. So has anyone here heard of something called like an Aura ring? You've heard of that? Okay, that is technically a biofeedback device, right? Or there's the Mendy or the Muse. These are all biofeedback devices. There's different ways to look at the biofeedback. Some people use something called heart rate variability, which means if your heart rate isn't, not that it's like going up and down or whatever it might be, it's just a pattern, same pattern over and over again. They found that that's the way your heart looks when you're in a flow state. And so these biofeedback devices are pretty neat in the sense where they're giving you real-time data as you're practicing. So some of my athletes, I have them hooked up to these biofeedback machines, and we'll just have them run in place. Okay, so now their hearts are all, up and, whatever it might be. How quickly can you use any of these techniques to get your body back to a regulated state? And that's sort of a game that we play a lot of times. So these biofeedback devices are pretty neat, and you can look into that too. All right, let's talk about dealing with setbacks. So resilience isn't about avoiding failure, it's about using failure as a stepping stone. So how many of you here have heard about growth mindset? Okay, a good deal of hands. Great. Growth mindset is not only important in sports, but it's really important in life in general. It is the belief that you have to, when you're really, it's based on the belief that it's not a belief, the theory that our brains are plastic, which means that we're constantly learning, we're creating new synapses, we're actually creating different connections in our brain as we learn and as we do things differently. And so the growth mindset is really saying, hey, we just haven't gotten there yet, right? And that whenever we have a setback, whenever we have a failure, whenever something goes wrong, that's a part of the learning process. You can't avoid that. You can't get better at anything without failing and without feeling disappointment, without feeling frustrated. And when that does happen, because inevitably it will, that's an opportunity for you to learn and to grow. And so it's not because you're so bad at this, or it's not because this always goes wrong for you, but it's just because you're not there yet. And this is something that you are going to use in order to learn from and to grow, right? You're gonna figure out, how do I do this better next time? Self-talk again, very important, right? Are we going to criticize ourselves, or are we going to encourage ourselves? And then there's something called, I call it the bounce back plan. Now this is really incredibly important because we all are going to have moments of frustration and disappointment. We need to have a plan. What are we going to do in that moment to bounce back from it? Because sometimes, especially when our emotions are involved, bouncing back is really hard. But if you already have this plan in mind, then it's much easier to implement it and to use it in that particular moment. And so in the worksheets, there's definitely a spot for coming up with the bounce back plan. And I want us to all think about going back to, again, some of these ways that you can learn to regulate your emotions and regulate your bodies, using some of them. Maybe it's a trigger word. Sometimes there's a word, a lot of my athletes, they'll use the word reset. Like they'll just say, okay, reset. You know, and it's just, that's the word that they can tell themselves to bounce back. This is like they're centered again. Using some mindfulness strategies and skills is another way to do that. So really looking at and thinking about, what are you going to do when you feel that frustration, that failure, that disappointment? Does anyone feel brave enough to share parts of their bounce back plan? No? Great.
Oh, rather than old, like, buzzer.
Hold on, we'll give you a mic.
Oh, I need the microphone. Great, thank you.
Hi. I would say my bounce back plan would be 3 parts. It would be some sort of breath, like maybe the 4 or 6. If I don't have time, maybe just a quick breath out. Then something physical, maybe a fist squeeze, or I like to snap my non-dominant hand actually. And then would be like a phrase like reset, or like this is necessary, or let's go is my preferred phrase.
I like this is necessary. I like that. I like that. Okay. The post-match feedback. Now, this is something that's incredibly important, and especially for the parents in the room, because you're a big part of this, and coaches too, obviously. I do encourage every athlete after, a tournament or whatever it might be, think about the performance. Think about, okay, how did that go? What are some things that went well? Always remember the went well too. What are some things that didn't go as planned? And to really think about, how are you going to take that and then improve upon it, right? How am I going to use this information? Because that's what it is. It's information to get better and to grow. Now, this is the thing I want you to do. For those of you who are with parents in particular, I want you to share that bounce back plan with your parent. And for parents, I want you to actually follow that bounce back plan when you are there giving feedback, right? Because there's a way in which, and it's important to hear from your child, how do they want that type of feedback, right? Because some people might be able to say like, that this is incredibly important. Have you ever heard of validation, the word validation? This is incredibly important in this particular post-match feedback, because you really want to be able to think about and to validate that person's experience. And I always say, when you're giving any sort of criticism or feedback, sandwich it in validation, right? You started with something somewhat positive that you can acknowledge, whether it's effort or, hey, I can tell you, like, really tried hard out there. Then you can give some constructive feedback, if this, maybe next time we can try, attacking a little bit quicker and being a little bit more aggressive. And then end it with another validation. I know that you're trying really hard and you're gonna get this, right? That's incredibly, incredibly important. Sandwich the feedback, sandwich with validation. Okay, for the student athletes here, this is your opportunity to be able to tell your parents what you want them to do. Don't miss out on it. Actually, even for the parents, I would like you to think about, from your point of view, what would you use to keep yourself calm and centered, during these particular situations too? Because watching your child, I know from experience, is sometimes incredibly difficult to manage your own whatever bubbling emotion is happening. So really think, even for yourself, which one of these tools and techniques might you use as well? Okay, I know everyone's been so patient lately. So I'm gonna fly through these next slides, and then we're gonna do a Q&A. I realize I could probably do this for another 4 hours. Motivation is the spark that ignites the journey, but encouragement keeps the flames alive. So important. Motivation is actually deeper than just results. It's about identity, purpose, and values. So parents here, help your child connect with their inner motivation by asking reflective questions like, what did you learn about yourself today? How did fencing challenge you to grow as a person? What moments today felt truly fulfilling for you? And for those of us here that aren't parents, these are questions that we can ask ourselves, right? And being able to really connect with, what is that inner purpose? What is that inner value that's actually important for us, that's gonna keep us going in those moments that it's hard? Okay, I love this. Commitment is the noun, discipline is the verb. Let that sink in for a second. Because motivation is great, but it's a feeling, unfortunately. All feelings, good and bad, they come and go. And so when it's there, use it. Great. It makes everything 1,000 times easier. But commitment and discipline, that will make you do things when you don't really feel like doing it. So really being able to commit to something that is greater than you and aligning that with your core values. Now, this is incredibly important, and we're gonna do a whole exercise on core values next. But another thing I really like, and this is kind of a good trick to use in a lot of life, not just sports, and athletics, is being able to say, I get to do this thing versus I have to do this thing. Because if you think about that mindset, it's completely different, right? You're saying, hey, I get to fence today and practice versus I have to go fence today and practice. It's a totally different mindset. Okay. Something that I want us all to kind of keep in mind, success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. If you love what you are doing, you will be successful. So I think this is incredibly important to keep in mind for all of us, because I think oftentimes we conflate success with happiness, and that's completely untrue. Just a quick mental health check-in. I always say, look out for stress and anxiety management. Use mindfulness, meditation, and breathing exercises to manage some of that. Really look for social support and communication. Build that network, whether it's, your teammates. I saw a bunch of kids sitting here together, which is pretty awesome. Your coaches, parents, who are the safe people that you can talk to and be vulnerable with. Emotional awareness, recognizing those signs of burnout or depression. And if you do, make sure that you tell somebody about that. And oftentimes burnout, the way it feels is that it starts to feel like I have to all the time. And then balance and recovery, maintaining a healthy balance between training and personal life, because you are just more than an athlete. This is a big point that I say. If you don't take home anything that I said today, this is the biggest thing. Fake it till you feel it. Because of that mind-body connection, it's fascinating. When you walk into a room and you're walking tall and you're feeling great, and you have that swagger when you walk onto that strip. Even if you're dying on the inside and feeling uncomfortable or really insecure, your brain reads those body cues and says, "Whoa, look it, we're walking tall right now. We're looking confident. I'm going to start pumping out the chemicals that happens when you feel confident, when you're happy, when you have more dopamine." And so actually sometimes if you can't switch it in the mind first, switch it in your body posture first. And then your mind will then follow. So I say fake it till you feel it. Thank you.
So we're going to do a little Q&A. One of the things I just wanted to share, just with you guys, in my new role, really over the last 6 weeks, I've had the chance to now do camps and travel with the top 16 cadets, the top juniors, top seniors in our country. And what's really interesting is everyone kind of has the same thoughts and deals with the same things. Like when I was listening to some of the top fencers from other clubs, they're actually articulating very similar things to everything I hear with all our students. So I think one thing to keep in mind is like whatever you're feeling, the nervousness, the fear, the doubts, all of that, actually everyone has those same kind of feelings. It's not unique. I always say this, everyone at a tournament is nervous and scared. Every last person, okay? If you're not nervous or scared, it means you just don't care about what you're doing. So anyone that says at a tournament, I actually see the people that do the worst, the people like, I'm not nervous, I'm not scared. Because they're like trying to hide that they are. Like I always used to like just say like, I'm nervous, I'm scared. It's not gonna impact how I'm gonna perform. But what I want to say about just seeing all the commonalities is then it really becomes, how do you deal with those things? And when I see even the difference between like our best juniors and seniors, they all are they have the same doubts and fears, but when they get on the strip, you can just see the difference in how they handle it. Like the top seniors, they don't look like Eli or Zia, they never look like they're scared or nervous when they're fencing about, but they have the same nerves and fears that you guys do. But they just have really, really good tools for how they handle it. And when you see like the senior fencers, you just see a consistency, right? Not just of the physical part, but of like the energy. Like now I'm watching like all these senior bouts, and I'm like, I never see ups and downs in energy. the lower I go in age category, like I go down to juniors and cadets, the more I start to see like body language, ups and downs, like 5 touches happen and the kid gets like really motivated, I think the bout's over and then they're suddenly going, like you just see these spikes even through a bout. At the senior level, like yes, there's ups and downs in score, but you don't see these like drastic swings in emotion. And it's not because those people aren't feeling
That makes sense, right? And not making them feel like they are quote unquote bad. So, like, for example, like when, I'm just gonna use this as an example. Sometimes like a kid that I'm working with might say something incredibly rude to me. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I have to say something here. So what I'll say is, listen, I know you're not a rude person, but what you just said to me there feels really bad, or it can come off as really rude, and then just kind of be like, so, do you want to give that another try? Like, can we say that a different way, right? So really starting with the intent, the benign interpretation, right? That this person isn't trying to be mean or, whatever it might be. And then giving them that benefit of the doubt by even saying that, and then sandwiching it in that type of validation way. But I would also say within that age group, I think there is a developmental phase where they are in a place where they're trying to push boundaries, right? And so I always say you can be really boundaried without being mean, right? And so I think it's straight out cause and effect. It's kind of like, if you do that one more time, you're gonna have to sit out. I don't wanna do that. And then if they do it one more time, then they have to sit out. And you don't have to like do that in like an emotional way or like in a mean way, but just kind of being like, oh, I told you, and I think that's kind of the way I would at least, approach. And also humor works. at that, especially at that age group. You don't want it to get too silly because I think sometimes there's a way, again, that they would push that boundary. But if you can kind of use some humor, sometimes they'll react in a way that you'd be surprised. it's gonna be similar for even a situation where you're on the other extreme end, right? Which is when you are doing so well, and then all of a sudden it's like the pressure to like, now you have something to lose, is what they kind of say. There's this pressure to then like, okay, I have to keep doing. But again, I mean, it's human nature, right? That you can't be perfect every single time, right? Or maybe you're not going to win every single time or whatever it might be, right? And so just as if you were on the other end of just being able to focus on, that particular bout, that particular tournament, you're gonna do the same when you're on a winning streak. You just focus on just that one specific situation, that one specific tournament, and then you go from there each single time, right? You're at a new starting point every single time, right? What's nice is obviously you're building a sense of confidence, right? And that's like really great, and it feels good when you're on the street, right? So it's kind of like that part is really nice, and I think ride that wave when that happens, which I think is fantastic. And then just make sure that, okay, it's like I'm just thinking about this. Like the past is the past, future is completely unknown, right? And so the only thing you have control over is that bout right then and there. And so just kind of keeping that, and that's the reason I'm telling you this is really because of longevity. To kind of like be able to sustain the confidence that you've built till now, like for the long run.
We'll take like one or two more questions and then give me a run.
Hi, you mentioned earlier you have in your presentation, there's a slide that you have to watch out for depression or like burnout, just in general, because like I think we have like an idea what depression is, but like I personally don't know what burnout look like with sports, especially with younger kids.
That's a great question. I think especially with younger kids, but really across the whole age span, it is kind of going back to that joy, right? And like, it's not that you wake up every day and you're so excited to get to the club and, to put on your gear, because that's not really what it's about. But it's more like, is there still a greater purpose? And is that greater purpose still more important than, what you might be like, experiencing? So I like I was saying, if you think of it more like I have to keep going, I have to do this, you're not doing it for yourself anymore. Like there is really no internal motivation. And a lot of times that is one of the major signs of burnout. It's like when it starts to be because mom and dad want me to do it, or it starts to be because I don't want to let my coaches down, or, I'm just, like, I'd rather be doing 1,000 other things, than going to the club today. These are all these signs of the I have to, rather than I get to. And just to kind of think of it, and again, sort of going back to that joy, that intrinsic joy that you find in fencing. And, I just realized we never got to do this one exercise, which I encourage you all to do. It's in some of the pamphlets, which is core values. There's one that's for the parents to look at their core values, and one that's for the student athletes to look at your core values, or athlete. And so it's kind of a lot of prompts, and it makes you kind of think about things. But again, it is connecting you to a greater purpose and what's really important for you and why you're doing it.
Any last question?
I don't need to. My mouth is Is this going to be shared in any way? The deck or anything?
We have been filming it, so it will be on YouTube. And as I mentioned, this will not be just a sort of like one-off, like this will be ongoing work between myself and Michelle and the coaches and some of the sessions we'll have coming up. Really want today for you to meet her and to start to just kind of big picture see like all the different aspects of it. Only just finally for me is like, it also is not like one size fits all. If you disagree with anything, as I said, please jump in. But even when we were talking a little bit with the kids this week at camp, like Eli and Ziad have very different ways that they, things they say to themselves and how they get themselves ready. And they were actually saying like, now we're telling you like the real secrets. Because they were even like, they didn't even want to share some of some of their routines because they're still, competing. But it looks very different for different people. Have you guys all seen the Michael Jordan, what's the documentary? What's the Last Dance, right? If you actually look at every situation, you can see a little bit of his psychology, not just how he is on the court, but Michael Jordan found a way to be offended by everyone to motivate himself. Like every other game, he was like, I took that personally. And he would just make it like, whatever it was, like he walked by me in the hallway and he only waved and said hi. I took that personally. And I knew I was gonna light him up 50 points. Like you could tell those are his tools for how sharp he was. I always wanted to be on the strip and be a little angry because when I felt a little edge, not over the edge, it would clear my mind. And I had one of my Olympic teammates, before we were Olympic teammates, I always saw him on the strip and he was always trying to like destroy everyone he was fencing. And finally, as we got closer, I'm like, how are you like on the strip? And off the strip is like one of the nicest, he's smart, one of the nicest guys you're ever gonna meet. But when he put that mask on, it was like, whoa. And he's like, you know what? I just pretended like they offended my family every single match, and then I go to like destroy them. And like when I was in college, it was like one of the first, I would say, emotions that I was able to like tap into, and I would just make myself angry at my opponent, and it would clear my mind, And so that if it goes too far, it's not good to be crazy, but it was like I took a little bit from him, like this person offended me,